So here in our first example, we have these two equations on our screen. The first one is 3x minus y is equals to negative 2. Then we have 2x squared minus y is equal to 0. So first we have to identify what type of equations they are. So the first equation is obviously a line. And then the second one is obviously a parabola because of the x squared. Now there are only two methods that we can use. One is substitution and one is elimination. But then after the observation and the identification we just made, the easier method that we could use is substitution, where one equation will be transformed into either x is equal to something or y is equal to something, and then that answer will be substituted to the second equation. So in this case, the first equation will be transformed into y is equal to something, and then that answer will be substituted to the second equation. So here we have 3x minus y is equal to negative 2. In order for us to have y is equal to something, that type of equation, we have to isolate y. So the 3x will be transposed to the other side. And since it's positive in the left side when transposed, it will be negative on the right side. So we have negative y is equal to negative 3x and then negative 2. But since we cannot leave the y as a negative variable, we have to multiply both sides by negative 1. So then we will have y is equal to negative 1 times negative will be positive. So we will have 3x, and then negative 1 multiplied to a negative number will also be positive. So we will have plus 2. So that is our first equation that is really useful for solving this nonlinear equations. And then next, 3x plus 2, this will be substituted to the second equation. So we will be having 2x squared minus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. So the first thing that we will do here is to distribute the negative sign so that we will not be confused when we're solving all the way down. So we have 2x squared distribute. We have negative to positive, we will have negative 3x, and then negative to positive, we will have negative as well. Negative 2 is equal to 0. And with this type of equation, we have to factor it out. But in this case, we will have 2x on the other side and then x on the other side. And then since the last term is negative, the one factor will be plus and then the one factor will be negative so that it will satisfy the equation. And then the factors for that will be 2x plus 1 and then x minus 2. I got that answer because there's a technique that I learned in school where when you multiply the inner terms and then also multiply the outer terms, and then you will get the sum or like the difference of that the answer should be the middle term in the equation. So 2x plus 1 and then x minus 2 is the correct answer because when I multiply the inner terms, you will have x. And then when I multiply the outer terms, we will have negative 4x. the answer will be negative 3x, which is the term here at the middle of the equation, meaning these factors are correct. Okay, understand? Okay, so the factor that we have right now is 2x plus 1 and then x minus 2. And then with that we have to get the x. So here we have the first one is 2x plus 1, so equals to 0. So we will have to isolate x, so 2x, we have to transpose 1 to the other side, so it will be negative 1, and then divide both sides by 2, we will have x equal to negative 1 half. And then the other factor is x minus 2 is equal to 0. We have to isolate x, so x equals positive 2 because the negative 2 was transposed to the other side. Now, x is equal to negative 1 half, and then x is equal to 2. Those two values will be substituted to the one that was substituted to the second equation, meaning the equation y is equal to 3x plus 2. We have to substitute negative 1 half and 2 to that equation. So first, let's use the negative 1 half first. So we have here y is equal to 3x plus 2. This was the equation that was substituted to the second equation. And now we have found the two x values. Now that x values will be substituted here. So first we will use the negative 1 half. So we will have y is equal to 3 times negative 1 half plus 2. 3 times negative 1 half is negative 3 over 2 plus 2. And then the answer is 1 half. So as you can see, we have here a x value, and then we have here a y value. Then this indicates that we have discovered a point where the line and the parabola intersected. Okay, so the first point that we discovered is negative 1 half, since this is the x value, should be first, and then 1 half. This is the first point. We have another x value to substitute. The next, y is equal to 3x plus 2 again. So we will now substitute 2 to the equation, because we also found the x value a while ago, another x value, which is 2. So we just have to substitute it to x. So y is equal to 3 times 2 plus 2. So 3 times 2, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2, it's 8. So now we have our y value, and then our x value is 2. So the second point that we discovered is 2, 8. Okay? So after all the process that we've done, the substitution and everything, the final points that we have discovered or solved is the first point is negative 1 half, and then 2, 8. And after solving, these are the points that were solved. So meaning these are the points where uh, the line and the parabola met. So in order for us to confirm this answer, let's check our Desmos. So here we have our second example. And as you can see, it's much more complicated than the first one, but the first step that we did in the first example will be also applied here. So the first step is to identify what type of equations they are. So the first equation, x squared plus y squared is equal to 26. This is a circle. And the second equation, 3x squared plus 25y squared is equal to 100. This is an ellipse. Now, in order for us to solve this, we have to use the easier method, which is elimination method, where a number is multiplied in one of the equations, and then the one term in that equation will be then equal to one term in the second equation. Then, since they are equal, we can eliminate them. Thus, elimination method. So, in this case, we have to multiply this first equation to 3 so that 3x squared can be eliminated. So, we have 3x squared plus 3y squared is equal to 26 times 3, it's 78. Now, we just have to copy the second equation. Now we have to subtract these two equations. 3x squared minus 3x squared, it's 0. Now, 3y squared minus 25y squared, this is negative 22y squared. Now, 78 minus 100, it is negative 22. Now we have to divide both sides by negative 22 so that y squared will be isolated. We will have y squared is equal to 1. And since y is squared, we have to square root. So then our y will be positive negative 1. Now, we have our y values here, 1 and negative 1. And then we will use these two values to substitute it to either one of the equations above, this or this. So of course, to make our lives easier, we have to substitute it to the much easier equation, which is the first equation, x squared plus y squared is equal to 26. So first, let us substitute 1. So we have x squared plus 1 squared is equal to 26. 1 squared is just 1, so x squared plus 1 is equal to 26. So to isolate x squared, we have to transpose 1 to the other side. We will have x squared is equal to 26 minus 1, we will have 25. X squared, we have to get the square root. We will have x is equal to positive negative 5. So now we have our x value, we also have our y value. So then we can have points. So in this case, we have two x values and then one y value. So we have 2 points. So the points are, first is 5, 1. Next is negative 5, 1. So we have our 2 points already. Next, we have to substitute negative 1 in our y. So we just have to use the same equation, the x squared plus, now we have to substitute negative 1 is equal to 26. Now, negative 1 squared is also 1, so x squared plus 1 is equal to 26. As what we like what we did a while ago, we have to transpose we have to transpose 1 as well to the other side. So we will have x squared is equal to 26 minus 1, we will have 25. Get the square root. we will have x equal to positive and negative 5 as well. So our next 2 points, we have 5, negative 1 because we substituted negative 1. Then we have negative 5, negative 1. And now we have 4 points already, meaning those 4 points are the intersections in the graph of the uh, the circle and the ellipse. So the 4 points that we have for this problem is 5, 1, then we have negative 5, 1. Next is 5, negative 1, and then negative 5, negative 1. So in order for us to confirm this, let's check our Desmos.